Welcome to another Gamma Partner Artist Feature interview. Today we speak with Teflon Musk. Teflon has been dropping work with us since before we were Gamma and we were Stacks NFT. He's been deeply involved with Gamma as both a collector and as a creator. He's a master of the memes, loves collage art, and is deeply involved in culture, being an adventurer and a pioneer of the internet, and a lot more. I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. Okay, so very excited to have Teflon Musk with us today. Teflon's a Gamma partner artist, but he was also an artist with us on Gamma. I think maybe even back in the days when we were Stacks NFT. So he's been dropping work with us for a long time. He's been involved in the community, both in Stacks and in Bitcoin. Very well-loved person in the whole ecosystem. And enough from me about you, Teflon. We want to learn about you from the horse's mouth, the horse being you. Tell us, who is Teflon Musk? What makes Teflon Musk? You can go back as far as you like. I know you're a bit of a meme master. You can talk a little bit about that if you'd like to, but yeah, go for it.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I mean, I think I have on my Twitter bio, or it might be my one of my Linktree bios, is that I'm a lifelong internet explorer. I feel like I came up in the age of the internet. I remember pretty early on, like screwing around on, of course, Paint, and really enjoyed PowerPoint for some reason very early with the shapes and the stuff you could do in that, and all the just transitions from slide to slide. So I've been fiddling around with art throughout school and summer classes and different things of physical art, poetry, pen and ink, all different types of that. And then at the same time always screwing around with friends, making videos, editing videos, taking cool pictures of us, mountain biking or doing stuff like early on. And then, I know you mentioned the memes, of course. I think I was probably, I think it was in the first few months. It might have been in the first year sometime of when Instagram launched, when it was super, super clunky getting on there. And that was, I mean, I had MySpace and other things where memes were sort of there, but I think Instagram was really my native home for memes and for social media and for art and stuff like that. I followed, obviously I made memes, posted memes, a lot of them early on before I'd say before 5 years ago was mostly just between friends. And there was some sort of inside jokes, inside work jokes, just funny things. And it was a funny creative outlet to put stuff out there. With that, of course, sometimes just different Photoshop elements and learning different techniques to enhance those. And then, I stuck with some themes, made some different theme pages, and with those started, diving deeper into more digital art, purely like for the art when I was, I say purely for the art, but much more like commercial art when I was selling merch for myself or for other people, creating, graphic designs alongside just my career in marketing. So that was my entrance into digital art. And then lots of folks were like, dude, mint these as NFTs and get into NFTs. Of course, I didn't end up minting them all as NFTs. I ended up minting a couple of them and then them never seeing the light of day just because I minted them just for myself, not as a collection, just to try out the technology. And then ended up, collecting a lot on ETH, collecting a lot on Stacks with, or minting some and collecting, some of the things with Boom NFT and then Stacks NFT and all the different iterations of that stuff. But I think it's been probably about a year and a half that I've been putting my work out on Gamma with the last 3 collections of Skier's Paradise. Last 4, now 4, but Skier's Paradise, the Ode de Roy's, which was the Pepe, small Pepe collection inspired in the months following attending Fake Basel last year with all the counterparty people. And, that kind of was definitely like a milestone in my career of getting much more into Bitcoin art, I feel. So I wanted to memorize that and, put it on the chain. So that, Time-Bound Dreamscapes, I'd say my main collage collection right now. It's ongoing. It'll be capped at 50. And then I just recently put up that 12-piece curated generative art collection. I love generative art. I love making generative art, collecting generative art. I like making it and kind of using elements of my collage art. This was one code base that I just knew I wasn't really going to use. And I also knew that I really was at a point where it wasn't going to be a long form generative art project that people could flip through them all, because I didn't really like them all and they weren't all super different, but I really liked some of the outputs. So I put that collection up there recently. So anyway, it's been fun. You know, obviously a year ago when I'd say it was before Fake Basil last year that I got into Counterparty, but when I got there, I got, you know, much deeper into the Bitcoin thing, and then Ordinals came right after that. So that's been to the races since then with, you know, the Gamma partner artist. It's been awesome using Gamma as a canvas there, and then got Counterfeit Card, which was super fun to be a part of the cult. And I mean, that's been I guess in a nutshell, there's a lot more in between, and a lot of memories made, and a lot of, you know, kind of stories and friends and things that I've, you know, contributed to my creative process, has contributed to the art that's all there as you see it now. But, you know, Gamma's been kind of front and center through most of it. I dabbled with Foundation. Of course I collect on other chains here and there, but Gamma's the go-to. It's been like really fun as a collector, really fun as an artist, and super fun to just have this whole community here. So thanks.
No, thank you. And that was, yeah, really great introduction. I'm curious, before we have a look at your art, and yeah, of course, and we'll pull up your work that you did with Counterfeit, and we'll pull up your own personal collections as well. And we'll talk about, you know, what you do, how you do it, why you do it, the process, the inspiration and whatnot. I want to jump back. So it seems like from quite a young age, you were quite aware of content and creating content. Where do you think that came from?
I think it was probably just growing up in the internet. I mean, I'll dox my age, I guess. I'm 28. So, you know, from a fairly early age, I was involved in the internet. And I think I probably attribute it to that. I think I also grew up around a lot of artists, full-time artists, professional artists, like just happenstance, next door neighbors and folks in my, you know, community and family friends. So I was blessed to be around them and kind of be able to create art and content, you know, in that form as well. It's not, you know, you don't think of content as that. It seems like the question was more around digital art and the digital content, but I think just always creating things, whether it's online, in person, you know, that's always been a part of my life. So yeah.
And was it something that was fostered and nurtured by these people, or they were just inspirations that they were around you?
Yeah, I think it was definitely fostered by them. I mean, definitely fostered by my parents, my family, you know, my friends around me too were all very supportive. And I think because, you know, because they knew everyone knew each other, and everyone knew that, you know, having a career in the creative industries and as an artist or doing things like this that are maybe not like the normal things is something that's actually possible. I feel like I was blessed with a lot of support because of that. And then, you know, I think there definitely was a stage in my life, you know, teens and maybe a little early in college, where I wasn't as actively creating. I definitely was throughout high school. I went to a school that had a really great art program, and I was lucky to get involved in all, you know, sorts of, whether it was pottery or calligraphy or, you know, performing arts, and doing some, even like, you know, graffitiing and doing stuff backstage with, you know, when there's theater sets and stuff like that, which is just fun to just get involved in all the different pieces of art and creating. But I wasn't as doing it much, you know, for myself. It was more an activity that was there. And I think, you know, mid-college, sort of towards the end of college, I started to do it more, just for those own reasons, because throughout college there's always so much task, and early in the career a lot of things are just focused on, you know, performing the best for clients, or, you know, for the company you're working for, and all those things. But I think it was a little later on that I realized that there's a lot of, you know, benefits of just doing it for the sake of creating and for yourself, and more as like a, you know, for the sake of self-expression, not just like for the excellence in the art form, I guess. So
yeah, that's a really interesting point to conclude with. Can you elaborate on that? How do you find this as a part of your self-expression? Is it something that you need to get out, or is it a way for you to show people who you are through your art?
I think it's probably some of both. I mean, there's definitely some pieces that are, you know, more dramatic and feely, and, you know, or a certain maybe complex message that's hard to get across in words, that, like, you know, a good piece and a good title will probably, you know, get that across better across all languages. But I think it's more of that. It's less of like who I am, I suppose. I mean, maybe my profile pic and a few other things, kind of are that. And you know me, I don't even wear cowboy hats that often, but it's not as much about being part of my digital identity and my digital self-expression. It's more of just, getting it out there and how I see the world, how I see, obviously a lot of my art is collage art. So how I see, recycling different pieces of the world and remixing things together in a way that, gives it new life.
And before we do hop to that and have a look at some of it, I'm curious, you said you were involved and you got into Instagram early and got into sort of memes and memetics. And we know that memes are really part or essentially of the fabric of the internet, a way we pass jokes around the internet. What was the attraction to you initially? And then how do you think you became quite skilled at it? How do you know when a meme is funny? What makes you, it's a little bit, I guess we can get there with your art. How are you confident to be like, yes, I want to put this out to the masses?
For the art or for the memes? Which one do you want to start with?
Let's go to the memes first.
Yeah. So that takes a lot of time, I suppose. And I did the one-a-days for, I don't know, probably 3 years, one-a-days of originals. And, doing that and sometimes two-a-days, kind of just putting in reps, you realize what works and what doesn't. You also, when you do something like that, you just end up meeting a lot of people and knowing a lot of people that are also of the same caliber or doing the same sort of things as you. And then it just kind of all trickles down, and the network and the knowledge kind of shares and things click. Similar to what you see, I think, in some digital art and generative art and different circles of the internet in Web3 and in this world. There's all these different small nuances in what makes things tick and what doesn't. I think it's a lot of it's just putting in the reps and putting in the time to see all of what's out there. When I was in memes, it was definitely more like fin memes, fintech, tech memes, those sort of things. So it was easy to know what voice to have, not like to say like to what my voice should be, but it's like knowing how to stand out from everyone else in the crowd of what people are saying, and to just have a different, not only just like a theme, but just consistent voice with how the art and the creative stuff that you put out there. I think there's a fine line that I don't draw at all of, sticking to your lane and sticking to your themes and all of that. But I think that's part of what makes being an internet explorer fun. Kind of, you can hop around, and that's what makes, Bitcoin as a canvas, just crypto blockchains as a canvas fun. It's an experimental digital canvas that you can put whatever art or whatever, text or anything you want on. So I think it's how I look at it.
Absolutely. And then your name, Teflon Musk, clearly a parody of Mr. Musk himself. Was it about perhaps providing some kind of social commentary through comedy that appealed to you?
Yeah, it was. And there was also, I think a lot of artists and a lot of creative people, when they do things, they try to like fill a certain void that they see in the space. So I was very much, a lot of my friends worked in finance, and there's lots of very high quality finance meme pages back in the day that were pumping out some of the most high quality memes on the internet. So, was following many of them and kind of knew the space well. And, this is before Elon was on Rogan, and, before, it was more when I was just a SpaceX kind of, and I had invested in Tesla. So I was, somewhat financially invested a little bit as well, just in following them and seeing the news. So there was, it was top of mind for the most part. And I worked in tech. So at some point I was back home in Philadelphia with some friends, and one of my friends said that word, or said the two words together. So we looked it up on Instagram, and there was like 3 posts about it. So I was like, all right, that's a perfect satire meme page that, I have authority to make memes on, since I work in tech, and I I follow SpaceX more, and I'm a Tesla investor. So I get the memes to some extent. And I'll be following the memes, and I'll be, listening to the earnings calls and kind of going with them. So, and it was really fun on Twitter as well. Like Tesla Twitter back then, pre-crypto. I mean, crypto was going on then, but I wasn't as heavily involved in crypto. There was lots of fun shenanigans there. So that that led the main page, and I kind of did some other offshoot pages and did some side gigs, helped different companies kind of with some memes and did some of that. But it could be kind of creatively burning to do them for prompts and things that you're not super interested in, and like, things that you don't find creatively fulfilling. I love memes, and memes are what make the internet go around. I think it's a great tool if like some brands want to use them, but it's more just like a great thing to have fun with. Kind of the same thing with art. Like I rather, and same ordinals and NFTs. I mean, all kudos to people that use them for businesses and for passes and all those things. It's an awesome use case for it, but I just really like it for the art and for the lulz and for all the shenanigans that happen here.
Absolutely. And then speaking of, it sounded a little bit like, it's a lot easier to create the memes or your art when it's authentic and you're doing it for the pure enjoyment of it. Let's have a look at your prints. You've put out 3 prints so far. Do you want to tell us about, working on Bitcoin? It's a slightly different canvas, file size is different for you. But not just about the challenges and the constraints, etc., but creating and then putting things out to the public and being like, yep, I'm happy this is the finished product. And then that feeling or that sensation when you do inscribe it and people are going to see it and it's attributed to your name. Tell us a story about all of that.
Yeah, it's very cool. Obviously, I had been around the space for some time, and even some of my early stuff, not public, kind of testing things. I realized early on that it cost quite a chunk of change to do some of the files that I did. I realized by the last one, Moonward Bound, which is, you see that there now, found some ways to get around it. And as Boozy and Cover and many of the others have, I just wasn't as invested early on in reducing the quality of my work or trying to compress it to do things. Found some workarounds. I still, I think it's very fun to put high quality work on chain. And I think collage art is, often HD. I did the one that just sold out, Wish You Were Here. I think it sold out last night or today. Was one in the interim as I was, figuring out like if maybe my art style is just going to be more minimalist art on Bitcoin. If like file sizes were going to be such a thing. Of course, I was going to always do, collage art as well, and still probably put some here and there if I couldn't figure out the compression thing. But that's mostly been the story of those. I mean, I have the Only Wrong Planet is the open edition now. I think I want to start using that, maybe Alpha Alert, and I plan to stick to this if I'm going to say this. That
here we go.
It'll be a pass, for some future mints, so you'll get some free prints and other things if you hold that one. And then the other ones, I like to do the smaller collection counts. I think it's until there's maybe I get a lot larger demand, but a lot of the community likes that. It's really fun to connect one-on-one with the folks that collect them. A lot of times, maybe they'll tweet it or DM me, and sometimes they would have collected my work on other chains. It might be their first ordinal. They might, I might have met them in Miami and they mentioned when to collect some of my work and they ended up doing it. Like, it's a really fun way to interact socially in the digital art world. I think it's always existed with NFT, not always, but it's existed for years with NFTs to some extent, but with ordinals and with the prints, I think it's really cool to have that, much lower cost way of accessing really fine art. And with the collections, it really seems to be taking off recently. So I'm excited to continue to use the canvas. I might even at some point drop some generative stuff on there. I don't want to, probably not going to do it like right now, just because I don't want to chase the hype, because even though I've been creating code art for some time, I haven't released it. I know it's the alpha and the meta rather right now. But at some point I'd love to continue to just use it as a canvas and to put my stuff out there. Whether it's minimalist drawing art, whether it's some of this collage art that you see in front of you now, or maybe some generative art. And, I love sacred geometry and that psychedelic, optical illusion art. I've been getting better at animating them in a way that's, sometimes it's a little unnerving to step away from the screen for a bit, but I've been slowing things down a bit and, trying to treat it like it would be, how it would be treated on a wall, not in a rave. And at some point I'll get some of those on chain and share those around. But it's just really fun to have it as a canvas. Love and I think the more I'd love to, I should probably like put out a Twitter thread on this, and maybe you and other people can too. But I like to think of it, and back when fees were booming, this conversation was a little more needed. But I like to think of it as like you're selling prints, but prints isn't like any type of print, if it's physical or not, and you want them. You don't sell them purely as the paper print. Like, you require them to be framed with a specific framer, and Bitcoin is sort of the frame. My art is the print, and if you want to buy it, you have to. And unfortunately, there's that small fee now when the mempool goes crazy. If BRC degens are degenning, it's a lot more. But I just like to think of it as that, and frame it as that, and it's something that's so decentralized that it's in my eyes going to last longer than anything else on the internet.
Completely agree. And you have got another print out. It was a collab with Cover. Tell us about this piece, but then touch on the collaborative process. So when you're creating a piece of art with somebody else, how do you share that load? How do you come to a mutual decision on what's going to happen and where it's going to go? And then how do you, as a pair of artists, decide, yes, this is the finished product? It must be a bit of a different process to just creating on your own.
Yeah. So I've done a handful of collabs, and there might even be some more in the works that are, I don't know, maybe final, maybe not. Who knows? They're not final until they're, truly published. But the process usually starts pretty slow with, I've got hundreds and maybe I mean, at least in the time-bound Dreamscapes folder, I think there's close to 200 files in there, of which I think 19 have been published in that collection, and the different I have a handful of different folders, but that lots of work in progress is in there. It's usually deciding the handful of them that I think might work best, or even some components from some of them. For example, like the girl in the foreground and some different elements that I think might work, and kind of maybe pulling 3, 4, 5 of them together, sharing different layers and different aspects, brainstorming on color palettes. And then it's different for every different collab, but oftentimes, like, we'll like to, once we have an idea for which kind of foreground, background, what elements we all want to put together, we start to think through, what the themes and kind of what energy you're trying to bring out from it. I mean, this one was, very calm, but also sort of that weekend calmness, which is kind of the crazy calm. It's kind of the weekend, Saturday or Friday, 5 p.m. Cover was saying it was a nice cold drink in her hand. I was thinking that she was tripping on mushrooms and looking at the sky as it was getting all glitchy. So everyone has different perspectives of how they view it, but kind of making sure that you're aligned and that you're all kind of on the same page of what energy we want this piece to bring out, and maybe if there's any stories to tell or not. Sometimes there's just aesthetic art for aesthetic art. Sometimes there's stories and deeper themes to it, but just making sure that we chatting with the artist. We usually get on the phone a couple times or more, but just BSing through that as we work through different iterations, and then usually once we're happy with something, we just say, let's send it, and then send it. So it's a process that both of us, both people, or however many people are involved in the collab process, it's usually just bringing together 3 pieces from here, that you've already worked on, and that you just hit maybe dead ends with, or you just don't have a current use for some elements or some aspects, and you have certain ideas, but you're just not loving certain other parts, and pulling it all together. So that's mostly been it. It's been very rewarding. I mean, definitely was a big highlight of last year, and I think I didn't see that issue. I believe there's still quite a few left of those. I mean, I think we did a pretty large amount there. So if anyone wants to pick those up, definitely head to Cover's account if you're listening to this in the near future, if they're still available. But really awesome art, really fun, artists who I've been, internet friends with for a while. I've just super love her style and how she brings new life to some pieces of mine that I thought, maybe we're just going to sit in work in progresses forever. And now they're just masterpieces that I want to hang on my wall.
Very well said. And then let's have a look at the piece that you did when you worked with Counterfeit Cult. This one obviously like had a theme that you needed to use as a stimulus, but then you were able to create whatever you wanted. Tell us about, I believe it's called All Roads Lead to Bitcoin. There we go.
Yeah, great one. Was my first public ordinal that I put out, and was welcomed with open arms. Sold out in a little over 24 hours. I was working on a few pieces for the base off of the prompt that Prism gave, and he invited me early on before much of this anyone was out there, just saying, hey, we're going to be doing this art project. Do you have a collage piece or do you want to work on a collage piece that could align to this theme around Bitcoin and hacking Bitcoin? And I had a few elements of these put together, and some of these words just stood out to me. There's nothing in the world like, and I think it was from like a shaving ad or something, and others and then I pulled the Bitcoin from the white paper, because a few of these things pulled together just made me think of that awe and inspiring moment that a lot of people had when ordinals were coming into everyone's general mindset of, wait, we can actually put art on Bitcoin, and like there's actually nothing in the world like Bitcoin. This is a unique thing. So I really like this card. I think it's one that introduced me to a lot of collectors, a lot of great artists, and just many people in the ordinals community. Of course, I knew many from being somewhat Bitcoin native, Stacks native, and putting art out early on there as well. But it was just really fun piece, something that I will forever hold as a milestone early in my ordinals career. I hope to someday, who knows, look back and hang these on walls, and maybe trade a few of the ones I have left for some other counterfeit cards or some other ordinals to add to the gallery to look at in my my Ordi gallery and browse them all. But yeah, it's just really fun piece. I love what Prism and Boozy are doing. Games, like the whole crew is really putting in work. I mean, we've got a lot of work to do, but like they've also put in a ton of work, and I love to see how everything's evolving. Prints, the originals, all these other, the viewing and the different experiences that people are able to get as they come into ordinals for the first time that you guys have now are really impressive. So it's fun to see my art there.
Definitely. And shout out to Counterfeit Cult, and obviously, like you mentioned, it Gamma with everything we're pushing with art, or anyone really pushing art on Bitcoin. It's really important and part of the fabric. And I think, the best value prop of the durability and immutability of storing files on Bitcoin. Let's have a look at the time-bound dreamscapes. They're quite different. We'll jump across to Skiers Paradise as well, because that's obviously all on a very similar theme. However, is there something you think about that fits the time-bound dreamscapes banner, or is it just what you'd like to create?
No, I mean,
they're
definitely
a cohesive thing.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely dreamscapey. I think I try to keep them all as things that I feel like are almost like liminal spaces, but it's probably the wrong phrase. Some of them are definitely liminal-ish, but just odd memories and dreamlike vibes that you get. I think I definitely try to not use words, because I don't think you ever really see words in your dreams. But yeah, definitely, I mean, vibey. I think I see a lot of weird stuff and sometimes like detailed stuff in my dreams. And, some of these are things that I see in dreams in real life, things that I just kind of think are out there in the ether that I want to do that. But they're all very landscape, oriented. If you just look at them as compositions, I mean, most of them are kind of follow that traditional landscape composition model, but it's cool, and it's kind of basic and structured, but it's just very aesthetically pleasing. I think I love to put a lot of thought into the names, into some of the descriptions, and sometimes like they'll might not mean too much to just the random person. They might mean something, for me, it might have been some song that I was really on that, that moment in time or something that I was trying to convey, or maybe some person who, maybe a collector or a fellow artist who influenced that piece somewhat because they were talking about it or something of that lines. But it's the landscapes, it's the dreamscapes collection.
And dig into the process a little bit. So I'll just pick one. Let's take the Orca, for example. How do you create that? Where do all these pieces come from, and what do you use to put it all together?
Yeah, I mean, I use Photoshop. I also use Procreate. I mean, I dig through lots of 50s, 60s, 70s magazines. My grandfather and dad has some I view digitally. I don't want to give away all the alpha of all the ones I do, but there's lots in the public domain. There's lots that are out there if you want to find them on eBay or find them at pawn shops or other things, and scan the picture or take a good picture with the iPad, and then cut it out on Photoshop with the with your pencil or on Procreate and layer things up. I also with a lot of my pieces, I think the Escape to Affinity might be an example of not that, but like to blend in the elements of generative art and stuff that I make with P5JS and code art. That's just 101 standoff, not long form generative art, but it's still very cool, very crisp lines that give that optical illusion effect, which I like to layer in. Sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it takes more of a forefront in the piece, or even other elements that might just be a side pattern or texture that might not be optical illusion like, but it's just some code layers that I like to weave into it.
And it was the same, I assume, a similar deal for Skier's Paradise, and you have the maps there as well. Where did this concept come from?
Yeah, so they're all very old. Obviously, was looking through. Well, so the concept I'll actually dive in a little deeper because I know mutual friend of ours. So I think I realized this afterwards. What got me thinking about this was Gabe Weiss with the Stoics way back in the day. We were having a conversation about old maps and the years of when certain maps go into public domain and you can start to use them in your collage art and your elements of your art. So I found all these, that conversation happened probably a year, maybe less, before this collection came out. And I ended up, I didn't really think of it consciously at the same time. Now in hindsight, I think that was what triggered it, but was looking up all these, very old Colorado maps and different ski resorts, and wanted to, thought there'd be little bits of gems that are in there, and you might see the ski mountain names or mountain towns that you go to or that I go to, or, maybe it might even be the name of the town of that piece in there. So wanted to use that, and I thought it was fun to, the back, some of those are, some AI generated elements with just other collage layered on top, and some, digital art paint splashes throughout most of them, and some gold elements on top of the maps on the side for some of the pieces. It was just, cool, vibey ski art. I think I made it August through October, I believe, or it might have been July through October, and then I started minting them about one a day until the day I started skiing in November that season. So I was kind of build up hype leading into the ski season, and then I just released them 101, in the midst of the bear as everything was crashing and burning and FTX was happening, and just ended up shredding and putting these out and collecting them with the handful of people that were still around collecting art at the time in the depths of the bear, including yourself and others. So thanks for collecting, and it's been they're really cool pieces. My mom likes them. Some other people really like them. I really like them myself. I think it's something that in hindsight I think might have been a lot more brilliant than I thought it was at the time, and I think it might continue to age gracefully. But they're very cool pieces. Very fun collection. I think it's just stuff that I think should belong in many ski cafes and chalets and lodges and whatnot. I obviously ski a lot, if it wasn't clear through the art. In fact, as soon as I'm off this podcast, I'm about to throw everything in my car and head out there and hope to God that there's not snow on the pass. But that is a way of expressing myself, expressing my hobbies, and I suppose, and the culture, which I think is something that is definitely a void in this space that I like to fill. I think every artist has their own void to fill with their voice, so it's not like you have to find one. But I feel like it's very, very obvious that to me that I want this art to be out there in the ether, because it isn't, and I think it's in my head as really beautiful, cool concepts and cool art that's very digital native. It's very just native to the year of 2023, 2024. Like it's what's happening now and here for me, and it's minted on the blockchain. It's some of my art's inscribed, some of it's minted on stacks. Like it's just at that time, it will as long as I look back at it, I'll always have that timestamp and be able to remember who I was collecting with and from, and all those things there with their BTC names.
Absolutely. And you're writing the segues for me. Like you said, you've used Bitcoin. This collection and Timebound Dreamscapes are both on stacks. You said you've minted elsewhere. So in regards to being relatively chain agnostic or deciding what goes where, what advice would you give to creators just about thinking about where do I put my art? What sort of art do I put here? What considerations do you make?
Yeah, my thesis has been changing over time as things change, but it's getting more and more all in on stacks and ordinals. I think depending on your financial situation and depending on your creative output situation. If you're someone who wants to put out a lot of stuff or has your artwork just like demands like high volume, high quality art or high quality files that aren't on chain you don't really care about, throw them on stacks. I think Ordinals will forever be a premium chain that I will always want to put my best art and spend a lot of time finessing the files to make sure it's perfect. I think we're seeing my take, not a financial advice, not an economist, just an artist and a crypto degen a little bit, but is that Tezos, which was the art, blockchain for a long time, is starting to lose a little support. I mean, Ozzy, who was the FX hash on their team, just announced he's leaving. There's been a lot quieter because there's a lot of dynamics at play where different blockchains that aren't as interconnected, there's just not as much interconnectivity. And I think their interconnectivity on the chain and interconnectivity like with the communities, there definitely is somewhat between ETH and Tezos. I'm not denying that. But I think the tight link between ordinals and stacks, I think will continue to be a spot, a good combination of stacks being in kind of sandbox or whatever you want to call it, experimental blockchain for people, and then as they grow their career, maybe grow their funds or grow. I mean, let's be real, it's not going to get too much cheaper, I don't think, to inscribe ordinals anytime soon. So there's, for many artists, there's financial implications to it, unless you have infinite resources. So I think I view that as the bulk of what I will be putting my art out on. I will always entertain other blockchains and will always experiment with other things out there. I think it's, it can be different types of art. It can be even your own, consistent style of your art. I think if that means bringing in new audience and new collectors, it's worth it. I don't think that's how I'm very much, I preach chain agnostic. I don't practice it 100% with every chain, but like I 100% support artists that want to put their work out everywhere. Same way, like I would never shame an artist that sets up a Pinterest account in addition to Instagram and Twitter. Like, go you, like, or you're an artist that makes art that's animated more and you want to create a YouTube account along with Twitter and Instagram, like go for it. Like get your art everywhere you can. So I think where you choose to invest, most of your time and energy, I don't think you can always be active and present in every ecosystem though in Web3. That's something that I'm realizing, I mean, I not realizing through myself, but just from friends and other collectors and artists that are talking about it. I mean, it's tough to stay deep in all of them. So I choose to stay in ordinals and stacks as deep as I go. And as opportunities present themselves on Ethereum, or, you know, who knows, I might even entertain Solana, but probably not. But, you know, I'm open to putting stuff on Ethereum, on Foundation. There's great tools. There's, you know, great art, many great artists, many great, you know, collectors and curators and people who I'd love to have my art, you know, in their house or in their wallet and in their galleries, who are primarily ETH based too. If that means their entry to most of my art is via ETH, then so be it. And same with, you know, ordinals and stacks. I mean, I hope people find my art one way or the other, and then they find their way through all of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And then that leads me to your collection, blotter quilts, which is a break from what people might be used to or expect from you, generative art. Tell us about this and how you're having a dive into generative art and the process there, and I guess for you personally creating in a completely different way.
Yeah, sure. I believe, I mean, I've been creating, I should check to see if I can find dates. I've been creating generative art for some time at very elementary levels. So I've never been confident enough to put it out on its own, especially with the knowledge that, you know, with generative art, there's the clause that like it should be long form generative art where you put the code on chain and people are able to, you know, mint or, you know, select versions of that code that they like, or maybe even random ones, and that, you know, that version is the version they get, not curated generative art drops like this is. That said, it is totally okay to put out whatever art you want, because that's part of being an artist, is putting out whatever art you want. And I've probably got about 40 or 50 sets of code that I like, and some of them are animated and some of them are long form generative. And this was one that I was never going to fully put out as a long form generative art project, just because it was never going to be that different enough that I really wanted to put it out in that form. So I decided I was going to put out 12, and there's also a type of art that I don't think I'll be able to use in my collage art. At least I didn't really have any use. I like to use optical illusions, strong contrasting black and white lines or different colored lines. And this really is just kind of like blotter paper or a quilt, or maybe blotter quilts. I don't know, but it's trippy. I mean, and it's really beautiful if you know, click the IPFS link and, you know, blow it up on the big AWS link screen and take a look at it. But it's really detailed. It's super cool. I like that there's only 12. Today I was chatting with a collector and a friend on them, and, you know, I firmly now have my worst 3, and I also have like my top 3. So I think 12 is a nice number that you can very easily manage to sift through and maybe find your favorite. And who knows, if you like a favorite, grab it. If not, just take a look at it. If you really like it and don't want to buy it, you can right click, save it, and put it on your phone and look at it every day if you want. That's totally cool with me too. I think there's a lot of beauty in algorithmic art and in generative art, and I think these are some of them that I need to get out in the world. There's not much out there that kind of fits this abstract style. Not that it's all about filling a void and fitting a void, but it's something that, you know, I'm really proud of. I have up on my big screen when I'm not using it, you know, sitting here on my laptop or my iPad. So I'm, you know, starting to get to the stage where I'm more confident in just putting it out there, and I'm even more confident in things, just listing them at a certain price and kind of forgetting about it, and, you know, letting a collector or buyer find it or stumble on it, you know, whenever they want, and letting that happen. I think the crypto world and the crypto art economy is, you know, very much tied to the attention economy, for better or for worse. And I don't know if I'm I know it's probably not doing anything to get away from that. It's probably just hurting my career, but it's something that I'm willing to kind of rest my hat on a little bit and not give in to the being a slave to the attention economy and creating art for the sake of art and putting it out there for collectors, viewers, anyone to appreciate it or not appreciate it, just to be there. And if it vibes with you, to collect it and, maybe hang it on your wall or, save it on your screen or something like that. Maybe even print it as blotter art if you want. That's up in the air too.
Totally. I think
you can edit that out if you want.
Beautiful. Very. No, not at all. No, it was very, very eloquent and elegant. It's all good. A big thanks, Teflon, for your time. It's been a pleasure to dig in a bit deeper and get to know you and your art and inspirations and process and just delve into you as a person. So thank you so much for joining us. And we wish you the best of luck for everything you drop with us, but anything you drop anywhere in the space, both physically and digitally. And thank you for being a Gamma Partner Artist.
Thanks so much, Brett. I really appreciate you. Appreciate Gamma. Appreciate, you having me on this podcast and giving artists a platform with literally the platform of Gamma, but also the social platform of the Twitter Spaces and podcasts and events that you guys put on. Miami was amazing experience. It was great meeting you and, even the rest of some of the new folks on the team that I hadn't met before. So really appreciate it. Appreciate everything you guys are doing and can't wait to watch where we are a year from now.
I agree. Thank you, Teflon.